What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to my channel once again. So today we're going to be taking a look at the Comgrow Laser Engraver Z1, and they were nice enough to send me the air assist, the rotary attachment, the laser cover, and the honeycomb bed. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to get this all taken out of the boxes, we're going to lay this all out, see what's on the table, and let's check this out and see how this works. All right, so I got this all taken out of the box and set up, and this took me probably about an hour and a half total between the actual machine itself and the cover and unboxing everything, the air assist, the rotary tool, and the honeycomb bed, which you can see behind the machine. I haven't put it under it yet, just because I kind of wanted to get everything laid out. And the cover is actually over on the floor right now, down over there, but I'll show that in a minute, but it just takes up a lot of space, so I didn't put it on just yet. So this was fairly easy to put together. The machine itself probably took me a half hour. There were a few tricky parts, which were the bolts underneath. You kind of had to flip it over in order to get those screwed in, but there were just two for each leg. And then a bolt on each of the corners actually put this together. And then the belt just rode through, up and around, and then you bolted it. And over on the corners, on all the belts to actually secure these down, the bolts don't really seem to go all the way down because it's a bolt and it goes right into the rail itself. So it does stick out a little bit, so don't be concerned about that. It shouldn't affect anything, so I'm not too concerned. I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna get the honeycomb put underneath, and I will put the dust cover on so I can show you that real quick. And then we'll get right into engraving and we're gonna see how this works. Now, it did come with, the air assist came with everything that you're gonna need and extra nozzles just in case this isn't the machine you have the 5-watt or you have the XT1 or one of their other models. So they have adapters just in case you need to use it. And the shield that goes on, I did put the air assist nozzle onto it, so this actually won't fit on. So it is magnetic, so I just stuck it on the side right there just because, but I'll take that off when I engrave anyway. So let's get right into this. Let's test out some materials. Let's get this turned on and we'll see how this works. So here is the cover that goes over the machine. This was fairly easy to put together. It was just some bars you put together and that was pretty much it. This doesn't really weigh anything at all, maybe a pound at the most, but super light. There are ports on the sides in case you need to vent. You can choose which side. It has a hole on the sides for the cables on either side depending on which way you want to run it. And it has the protective shield in front so you can look at this machine while it's running and you will protect your eyes. The light bar you can see has an on-off switch that's just plugged into a USB so I can turn it on and off if I want to. And it's Velcroed right on top, which I can take off if I don't need to use it, but it is a nice feature to have. Now I won't be using this for the majority of this video just because it takes up a lot of space and it's quite big and it'll be kind of hard to see what I'm doing. So I will be removing this for the duration of this video, just so you get an idea. So they did supply some test pieces of wood, which there are 5 of them. So we'll go ahead and we'll do some engraving and we'll do some cutting on one of these pieces of wood first. But what I really like about this is that it is easy to adjust the nozzle on where you need it. There's 2 screws on each side that you can just unscrew them and adjust where you need to put the laser up or down. And there's actually additional holes so you can lower it or raise it even further if you need to. So all we have to do is place that under and we'll use this. This is 7 millimeters and that's how you gauge how high it needs to be. So we can just unscrew these until it's right on top, tighten it, and just remove it. And now we're all set up and we are dialed in. So in order to turn this on, you just have to flip this switch right in front. So let's head over into Lightburn. Let's get a file chosen and let's see how this engraves. Okay, so here we are over in Lightburn and I have this all set up already. I have chosen the Comgrow Z1 and I actually did have to go into devices and manually add this in, which was not a big deal. You just create manually, click on Gerbil, click next, enter the dimensions in, and click OK. And once I hook this up via USB, started right up and homed. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to choose, I'll go to their media library, and let's just choose this eagle, and we'll drag that in. We'll get this a little centered, and we'll resize this. Let's go maybe 50 millimeters. That looks about right. And we can zoom in. I'm going to right click and I'm going to trace this image. And you can adjust the cutoff and the threshold. I'm not going to. I'm just going to go ahead and click OK. And for this, we will do a fill. And I'm going to keep this at 5,000 millimeters per minute and 40% power. And obviously, this isn't glass. This is an eagle. So we'll just change that. So if we click on preview, right click, click preview, we can see what this is going to look like, and it's showing about 7.5 minutes. So we'll click OK, click frame, click on it, and I do have this set to absolute coordinates and not current position. So we can click frame, that will go to where it needs to go, and we can make any adjustments if necessary. And then from there, all we need to do is hit start. All right, that has finished. Let's take a look at that, see how this turned out. And I think that came out awesome. It's not burned in there too deep, and it came out really dark, and I think that looks great. So overall, yeah, at 40%. Now they say on their test materials file to do this at 100% power at 5,000 millimeters per minute. Now I think that's just absolute overkill, and I would be totally burning into this. I just don't think that would come out looking that great. So setting this at 40% power, yeah, I think that worked perfectly. So let's go ahead and let's do another test piece. Only this time, let's try doing a piece and let's cut it and let's see how well the cutting works, especially with the honeycomb bed underneath. And hopefully we're not going to get much charring because of that. So let's get that all set up and let's see how that works. Okay, so here we are back in Lightburn. Let's go ahead and let's just get that out of the way, and we can we'll just turn off the output for that, and we'll just unshow it as well. I'll click on a new layer, and we'll just draw a square, hold down shift, that way we can make it uniform, and there we go, something about that size. And this we will just do a line, and we will be cutting this. Now, according to their parameters, if I go back in engraving parameters and I take a look at what their recommendations are, so based off their 3 millimeters, so we'll do this at 100% power at 250 millimeters per minute. So we'll reset this, we'll just call this box, set the speed to 250. We'll set this at 100% power. We'll click OK. And we'll get this framed around so it's kind of hanging right off the edge of the board. So this is framed, and that's looking good. That's right off the edge. So I'm going to go ahead and click Start, and we shall see how well this cuts through it. All right, so that has finished. Oh, that fell right out of there. So that was just fine. And I did not use any air assist on this first test, so I will do it on the next one. And even without the air assist, there's hardly any charring at all. There is a little bit that you can see, but it's really not that bad at all. So I'm going to do the same exact test, and we're going to turn the air assist on and see if that makes any kind of difference. So I have this all framed up. I do have the air assist turned on, and we'll click Start. And hopefully we'll have less charring from this. This does create quite a bit of smoke, so this is why the cover would come in handy to vent some of that gas and to keep it enclosed. Let's take a look at that. Oh wow, that made a significant difference. You can clearly see that this had charring and there is virtually no charring. Let's look at the backside. Again, there's literally zero charring whatsoever in there, and that cut that out pretty much perfectly. So I am quite happy with this. So I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna find a bigger piece of wood to do another cut on this to see how much of a difference and how thick this can actually cut. So back over in Lightburn, I have two boxes set up. The first one just has one pass and the second one has two passes. So if we look at this, the speed 90 millimeters per minute, power, and just one pass on this one. This second one, we can see that this has two passes. And now if we look at their recommended settings, this does show for cutting 7 millimeters thick at 100. This is thicker than 7 millimeters. This is just under 13 millimeters. So that's why I have two passes set up. So we're going to see how far this actually cuts down on the first one, and hopefully this will cut through the second one just fine. So I'll get this all framed up, and we'll go ahead and click start. Those two passes have finished. And if we take a look, even on the second one, it didn't make it through quite all the way. The first one, again, did not. We can see how far it actually cut down. But neither one of them actually made it through. Let's try another test, and let's see what settings we actually need to get this cut through the wood. So this last one was done at 150 millimeters per minute and 100% power with 4 passes. And yeah, that made it through for the most part. It wasn't really the greatest. It kind of chipped off the side because I kind of broke it. So it didn't cleanly cut it all off. I can probably speed it up to make this go a little bit faster. So I'll run 2 more boxes on this. The first one I'm going to run at 300 millimeters per minute at 100% power, but I will do 5 passes on it. The second one I'm going to do at 50 millimeters per minute at 100% power, but I am only going to do 2 passes. So I did shrink these down a little bit. So let's go ahead, let's hit start, and let's see if any of these can make it through. Let's take a look. So again, neither one of these actually made it through. So the only one that really did was the 4 passes at 150 millimeters per minute. So that's enough with this cutting for that. So let's move on. So let's go ahead and try out the rotary attachment. I do have this all set up, and you do have to unplug the Y-axis from both and plug the rotary one into the cord that's coming out that's showing Y1. And that's all you need to do. And you do have to make some adjustments in Lightburn, which I will show you here in a second. But I'm just going to be doing this block of wood, this round piece, which is approximately 32 millimeters. So I did already adjust the height, so I don't need to do that. We got this all set up and centered to where it needs to be, so we'll head over to Lightburn and let's go try this out. So back in Lightburn, for the rotary test, we will try this butterfly right here, and I did have to go into Tools and Rotary Setup and adjust some of the perimeters in here, the roller diameter, the millimeters per rotation, and the object I will be engraving. And also mirror output to rotary to make sure it doesn't come out backwards. So we'll click OK, we'll frame it, and then we shall hit start. And I will be doing this again at 5,000 millimeters per minute at 50% power, and I did just keep this on image, and I do have this set at 318 dpi, and the line interval is 0.08. And I am going to be using Jarvis. So Click OK. If we preview this, it shows 1 minute and 26 seconds, so not very long at all. Click OK, and let's hit start. So let's take a look at how that turned out. And I think that turned out great. So yeah, the rotary attachment, I think works perfect. So I'll go ahead and run a few more tests on this machine, and then we'll come right back and then we'll talk about some of the pros and cons about this, and we'll go from there. Okay, so I'll go ahead and I'll run one more test, and I will be using the cover for this one, and I'll just be doing it on this white tile that is painted white. So I'll get this all set up, we'll get this closed, I'll turn on the light, that way you can kind of see what's going on, and let's do that and let's see how this comes out. So that has finished, and let's take a look at the tile, and I think that came out really good. I'm not quite sure what happened up here at the top, but I'm pretty sure it's because I didn't paint it evenly across the whole thing, and as you can see, it might be kind of hard, but the top is a little bit darker than the rest of it, so I might have just, when I sprayed, just missed a part or something like that. I don't know, but overall, I think it came out really good. So let's go over some of the pros and cons about this machine, and first I'm going to start with the cover, and I'm going to show that right now and just kind of talk about that. So here is the cover with it on the machine, and I absolutely love this thing. It fully encloses, it seals, I can zip this all up. It does include a light bar that I can flip the switch and turn it on and off, which is really, really neat. I like that it has vent holes on both sides in case you want to use one on one side or one on the other, or both. It also has the ports for the cables on both sides depending on which side you want them on. So definitely a bonus to have that. This enclosure actually is fireproof as well, and I will just take my torch right here and show you that I can heat this up and it does not even leave a mark. I mean, it's a little warm, but it didn't melt, so it's perfectly fine. I think the only thing I would change about this is that it would come with an extra Velcro strap. As you can see, it kind of moves a little bit, so if I actually had 2 of them, I would be able to actually secure this a little bit better, but really not a big deal. I can just use a zip tie or something else, so that's not really a concern or anything bad about it, just something that I think could be slightly better. Okay, so let's move on about the rest of the machine. So I'll start with the unboxing and setup of this. So first, this came very well packaged. As you saw, as I was opening this, everything was neatly packaged inside the foam, so it wasn't moving around or getting damaged whatsoever. Putting this together, it was fairly easy. However, if you've never put one together, it can be a little tricky. And I'll show you, these are the steps that it shows. And the pictures are really small, and you can't really tell what they're saying to do in some of these pictures. It's kind of hard to know. So if you've never put this together, it can be a little tricky, but overall, it really isn't that bad. I think the hardest part was actually having to turn this upside down to get the feet on and to get those bolted together. But once that was done, all I really had to do was run the belts underneath, over, back underneath, and around, and then secure them with the nuts. That's one thing that I really don't like, that I think could be a little bit better about this, is that these nuts stick up a little bit. I think they could have used a slightly shorter one. Really not that big of a deal, as they're not in the way and they're not causing any problems with it. I just think it might look a little bit better if these were actually flush against the machine itself. So as far as the laser goes, this was the 10 watt, and this was very easy to install. It was just, I had to unscrew all 4 nuts, take it off, and then there was 4 screws on the back which again, in the manual, it shows 3, but that could be vague and they could be talking about the 5-watt machine, and that one might only include 3, so that's not really a problem. It's probably just a standard manual that they put out. So it was 4 screws, and then I just put it back on, tightened them up, and that was it. Now I do like that you can move this up or down with these 4 screws, and there's 5 different placements on here, whether you need it higher or lower. So if you need to go really low, you can lower it, but if you need to go up higher, you can dramatically raise this up to go higher, especially if you're using the rotary tool, which we'll talk about that next. Also with the laser, it's really easy to adjust it by just placing this piece of acrylic that it comes with right underneath, adjusting the knobs to where this sets right on top. And they do have this set focus to 7mm, so that's exactly where you're going to want it to be. I do like that the on-off switch is right here in front, simple to use, and the power cords just go right on each side. You have one for the power, one for the USB. I did like that this machine did come with some test materials. They gave 5 of these along with it, and they do have a USB flash drive that has everything you're going to need on it, which includes some test files, the drivers that you will need if you've never used one before, which I already had the files already on here, which are the CH340. So I didn't need it, but if this is your first one, you probably will need the drivers that come with this. And it comes with the test material samples and what settings to use, so that's actually very helpful. Now, I didn't really go off of theirs, and some of them were a little off, I think, which they probably would work, but it just might give a little overkill or underkill depending on what you're doing. I absolutely love the honeycomb bed along with the air assist. I think that really helps when you're doing any sort of cutting, so you're not getting any of this charring along the sides. And you can see right here, I mean, there's virtually none on both sides. It actually made near perfect cuts with this, so I was very happy, and I will be using the honeycomb bed for more or less everything else I do going forwards, along with the air assist. And they do come with a little bracket right here to add on to keep the hose right in line so it's not kind of flopping all over the place. It would be nice if it kind of ran somewhere else along the way, because it is kind of wound up, and with the cover on it, kind of makes it a little bit awkward. And since it comes in from the side, it has to come in and then go up, around, and over, and it could be popping in the way maybe, but not really a big deal. And yeah, it works really well. I do like that this was able to engrave different materials. Here was the first piece of wood that I did. Here was the little owl, and that was one of the test materials and sample pieces that it came with. This was on a piece of stainless steel, and I think that came out really dark. I really like how that came out. And this was at, I believe, 400 millimeters per second at 100% power, so I'm really happy with the way that came out. The rotary tool worked perfectly. I think the butterfly came out great. This was, again, another one of their sample pieces that came on the flash drive. And here was the tile that I did. And again, this is the top, and that's probably my fault, not the machine's fault. But overall, I think that came out great. I probably could adjust some of the settings, maybe some of the contrast a little bit to make it come out a little bit better, but I just kind of set this up, hit go, and that's how it came out. So yeah. So I'll go over a few of the things that I dislike about this machine and some of the cons that I think that could just be better. So first of all, there is no place to put the flash drive that it comes with anywhere on this machine. All there is the power on the right-hand side, and on the left-hand side you have the USB. So if I want to do any offline engraving, I can't. So one thing that would be, I would definitely change, would be to add somewhere on here a port to be able to insert a flash drive in case I just wanted to download this to here, stick it right in, and then hit print, but I can't do that. Secondly, some of the directions in here were a little bit difficult and hard to understand, and even the parts list, this part right here to level the laser, I'm not seeing it anywhere on here. So at first I wasn't quite sure what it was. I didn't really know, so I just kind of guessed, and I assumed that that's what it was for, but it doesn't show you in here. And setup, it's a really bit difficult. I wish they would have had better directions or better pictures or something like that that make it a little bit easier. This is the only color picture on the setup, and it's really hard to see what it is, especially having it be so small. So yeah, I think the instruction manual needs some work, and it needs to be a little bit more laid out and a little bit more detail on some of the things that you'd like to do. So as far as the rotary tool goes to set up, this is all they give you. And it's really not helpful at all, if you ask me. I mean, this is showing, if you can see this is for 3D printers. If you have the little offline controller hooked up, which this doesn't come with, so it's more or less irrelevant to me. And it also talks about changing some of the steps in here. And so like here in Lightburn, change it type 101 equals 65. And now that setting is the Y setting on the steps that it goes back and forth. So once you set that up for the rotary tool, when you go back to change it and you're not using the rotary tool, if you don't set that back, this is what's going to happen. It's going to get shrunk because the steps aren't the same. So as you can see, that was the first one before I changed it, and now you can see how much bigger that is. So they don't mention that anywhere in their manual, so if you're using that, keep that in mind, that if you change that and you are using Lightburn, you will have to switch that back. They also don't mention anywhere in here, at least not that I saw, that when you're going to hook this up, you have to unhook both Y-axis motors. Since there's two of them, you have a Y1 and a Y2, and you have to hook it up to the Y1. So if you don't unplug both of them, it's not going to work properly. So they don't mention that again in the manual, so unplug both and then plug it into here, into this one, and leave that one just unplugged. So overall, if you're just looking for an engraver that's a low cost, which this is only $3.99, and you're just looking to engrave wood, stainless steel, acrylic, leather, different material, I mean, I think it works perfectly for that. But if you're looking to do a lot more cutting, you might want to look at a more powerful laser, and this one might not be the one for you. So if you're looking to pick up this machine, I will put a link down in the description on where you can pick this up. But that's going to be it for today, guys. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button down below, get notified of all the videos that come out. And as always, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.